Welcome to the next of our exciting collaborations between Walt Disney Imagineering and D23, the official Disney fan club. I'm Leslie Iwerks, the director of the Imagineering story on Disney+. Over the past months, we've been celebrating a number of major theme park milestones, and today we're here to celebrate an epic one, 20 years of Tokyo DisneySea, one of the most beautiful theme parks in the world. I'd like to welcome D23 Gold members to this exclusive presentation, where we will be taking you on a behind-the-scenes tour of Tokyo DisneySea. Hello, Imagineers around the world and D23 Gold members. We are here at the WDI campus in Glendale, and I am here with three wonderful Imagineers, Craig Russell, Daniel Jew, and Emo O'Brien, who have all worked on Tokyo Disneyland and or Tokyo DisneySea. And we are here to celebrate what is the 20th anniversary of Tokyo DisneySea, and soon we will be celebrating the 40th anniversary of Tokyo Disneyland. So I'd like to start by asking you all, what makes working on these two parks so special? Go for it. You started, Craig.
I'll start?
Yeah.
I'll start by probably stealing part of Daniel's answer. I think that we do an orientation for people new to the portfolio, and one of the things that Daniel really shares, and I think it's so true, is that if you were to design the perfect Disney park guest, it would be our guests in Tokyo. That they have over 40 years gotten the hang of us, we've gotten the hang of them, and the work that we do just simply resonates in a way that I don't want to say is more than anywhere else in the world, but it's just sort of so special because we know how to entertain and know how to make ourselves part of the culture, and you know, it's needless to say it's returned manyfold from our guests.
Yeah, and I guess I would, repeat that as well. But also, what makes it really exciting for me is working with the Japanese, the teams in Japan, our partners, Oriental Land Company, and having our team really work so close with them, side by side. There is a pride in the work that they absolutely have. They really want it to be right. And so I do think that that's why our projects in Japan are just so fantastic because of their effort.
Yeah, you guys took both of my answers, but expanding on the pride that everyone in Japan takes with their work there. I mean, for me, having gone to Tokyo DisneySea as my first project out of college, I was just astounded by how much care and concern everyone on the job site put into what they were building. So from every minor little detail to the largest concepts, everyone just really wanted to do the absolute best that they could do. And that was just astounding to me. I thought it was great.
And Craig, you were there at groundbreaking, right? For the original Tokyo Disneyland?
Actually, I wasn't there for groundbreaking. I was there shortly after. So there were two of us who hired. Bob Weiss, our current president, was the other one. We were hired as the kind of the young kid coordinators, myself on the engineering side, Bob on the architecture side. And our jobs were, it was sort of the perfect entry-level job because we were certainly students of everything. And oddly at the same time, we were sort of charged with being the coordinators of all the teachers. And we worked with a lot of Walt's guys, and the real objective was to teach our craft to a whole bunch of Japanese folks who were just brand new at this. Oriental Land Company, their consultants, their contractors, and so I got to host a whole bunch of trips over here for folks just plowing through on third shift just to learn and learn and learn. So it was kind of a fantastic experience of being teacher and student at the same time.
And what was it like for you to see the extraordinary success of the second gate?
Oriental Land Company really had it right. They knew that they had to in some ways compete with themselves because of what Tokyo Disneyland had become. And we knew they were right, and so it was a huge passion of love, and it was just fantastic to see that, in fact, we were collectively right. We were rewarded. Their business was rewarded, the guests were rewarded, and it was a huge, huge success.
There's obviously probably a number of people that have never been to Tokyo DisneySea. What do you think impresses people the most when they first walk in and see the second gate park?
Well, I'll go first, and then we all get to answer that. I think the attractions are, they're first of all different except for one in the park that we built, Indiana Jones. But I think that the thing that most impresses people as a first take of the park is how layered and rich and deep and immersive the storytelling through placemaking is, because it's a park that you can get lost in the 7 seas, 7 ports of call each, and each one can completely envelop you. But the closer you look at each and the more discovery there is, they hold up from the big broad first view that drops your jaw down to the closest of inspection. The richness just kind of keeps growing.
Yeah, there is an endless level of detail,
Yeah.
almost to a fault, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that it is really hard to actually focus on certain things because there is so much detail. I would say Tokyo DisneySea is probably the most immersive parks we have ever built, because you are in those worlds completely when you go to those 7 seas.
Yeah, and the scale of the park is just huge. When you walk through the front entrance, it really reveals itself to you across a huge lagoon with a giant volcano at the back of it. And then there's more beyond that. So you really can get lost wandering through, and you can zoom in, as Craig mentioned, like to just the smallest, tiniest details that are you would never know that you could be walking through the park, and maybe 6 p.m. you'll hear a rumbling, and then there's flames that come out of the volcano. What? It's just really cool how much layering there is.
Yeah. Well, and even, I mean, a lot of people, you do the park, you do the loop, and you experience the 7 ports of call. And then for those who are smart enough to do it, you kind of get on the transit steamer, which is this boat that circumnavigates this gigantic swimming pool of a lagoon that we built. And the perspective from the water, which is, of course, is what it's about, is a completely different perspective. And I mean, again, there's layer after layer after layer of how to experience this park that we're fond of saying our parks can't be consumed in a day, and that's part of what this form of entertainment is. This park, I would defy somebody to consume it in a day. It's somewhat impossible.
Daniel, what projects in both parks have you really enjoyed working on?
Well, my first project for Tokyo was Pooh's Honey Hunt, and that really is probably my favorite project to have worked on. It's such an adorable project. It's a extremely innovative project. The first one that had free-ranging vehicles, and so that was my first relocation to Tokyo. And of course, so I have very fond, personal relationship with Pooh's Honey Hunt. Over at Tokyo DisneySea, my favorite project to have worked on is coming up, and so that will be Fantasy Springs, and it will really up the game of what an immersive land is, even for Tokyo DisneySea. It brings a lot of fantasy to the park, which we feel the park really could do with, and the attractions there are really fantastic. Themes around Peter Pan and Frozen and Rapunzel. It really will be a beautiful land that is going to make Tokyo DisneySea absolutely the best park, the most beautiful park that we've ever built.
I think what is great about this expansion is that it really presents something to experience for guests of all ages. So we have kind of an action and adventure that you can get in the Peter Pan and Neverland areas. We've got the romance and the comedy that you find with Rapunzel, and then also the familial love that you find in the Frozen story, which is just a different way to look at love from what we might traditionally see in a princess story. So, for groups of friends, young women who like to go to the parks together, kind of that sisterly love, I think, is an important note that we don't always touch on. So I'm just excited that, anyone from maybe more seniors who have the nostalgia for Peter Pan to the girl friendships, and then also kind of that first date with the romance and the comedy of Rapunzel. I think there's literally something for everyone in what we're doing.
Nice. This probably is a pretty basic question, but what, if anything, have you gleaned from, say, the original Fantasyland from Disneyland that can still permeate through today that you might take inspiration from? whether it be story or, just original intent?
I don't know if you guys want to jump in on this, but I would say for me, it's the kind of escapism piece of it, because we have so much of harsh reality in the world, and being able to just go to a place where you can imagine that you're someone else in a totally different experience, I think is what I take from it.
Which is completely appropriate in this park, because some of the ports of call are trying to be places that could be real, and others need to be. Mermaid Lagoon needs to be in a place that's completely fantastical, right? That doesn't exist and just allows you that level of escape.
Yeah, I think that Fantasy Springs really puts you right in the stories. You know, for the first time ever, we are going to build Neverland, and you will feel that this is where Peter Pan and Captain Hook and the Lost Kids, this is where they have fun and they run around. We are building Arendelle, we are building Rapunzel's Forest, and I think what's great about Fantasyland, whether it's at our castle parks or whether it's at Tokyo DisneySea, is that it really brings the people back into the story. We're doing it in a much more immersive way than Fantasyland at our castle parks. You don't really go into the story of Fantasyland until you get onto like the ride, the Peter Pan ride or the Snow White ride. Here you will walk into the story, which I think is going to be fantastic.
So what can you say about the rise of Duffy?
I don't know, Daniel, what can you say?
Yeah.
Duffy. So Duffy, I mean, as much as everyone would love to say, oh yeah, we knew Duffy was going to be popular and was going to be a huge success, it is a phenomenon that no one could have expected. So Duffy, for those of you who don't know, Duffy is probably the most popular character at Tokyo DisneySea. And I say Tokyo DisneySea specifically because that's the only place that you can actually see and purchase a Duffy in all of Japan. He's very exclusive to Tokyo DisneySea. His story is of him being made in Cape Cod by Minnie for Mickey to travel with as a companion throughout the different ports of call at Tokyo DisneySea. And that story just really resonated with our guests, and his cuteness, of course, resonated with our guests. But this other sense in Japan, they have a word called iyashi, and iyashi is this idea that it is comforting, it is soothing. It's as if Duffy, being with Duffy, that something good will come, that things will be good. And in a society that is very stressful, it's a very stressful society, either at work, the pressures of what you're expected to be and expected to act. But at Tokyo DisneySea, our guests can really be who they want to be. They can walk around with their Duffys and experience the parks with their friend, with their companion. And that's what they do. They travel with him. They go to the different ports of call. They take photos of him in different scenes. They will rent strollers for their Duffy. They will get the high chairs for their Duffy at dining establishments, and they can eat with their Duffy. When they walk around with their Duffy, they are always having him face outward, because they want him to see what they are seeing, and so they can share that experience with him. So it's an interesting phenomenon, and it's one that really hits to the core of the Japanese guest and what they really desire from Tokyo, from our parks in Tokyo, is they want that escape. They want that ability to just be free and to express themselves without any pressures from society. And Duffy does that for them. So yes, he is the number one character and his friends, all his friends, they even top Mickey and Minnie at the parks.
So I'm just saying my next documentary is probably going to be entitled The Rise of Duffy. I think it deserves its own story. What excites you about going forward, and what is your own training and background? How has that helped you in constantly changing and adapting to new innovations and technologies at Imagineering and pushing forward and training? And
there's so much to kind of put in that whole thought bubble. My personal experience, I grew up operating rides in a theme park in Ohio. And then I was a waitress for several years. Then I studied architecture, and then I landed here. So all of those experiences kind of gave me a bit of a background of understanding operations at the same time as working through design. So I in my design career, have always thought about how someone needs to use the space or the attraction or however it works out for the users, be it guest or cast. So that colors my perceptions a little bit, and just the importance of the equal value of the needs, not just for the storytelling, but for usability and experience on both ends. So that's one bucket to answer kind of part of that question. The other part is, what about the future and what's next? I mean, in all things in life, you don't really know what's next, so you can only kind of strategically think what would be really great to provide moving forward for a group of people, like Daniel mentioned, who have very high stress in their lives and are just looking for a place to be able to express themselves freely without judgment. So using that and the operational considerations and the design considerations, it's like, okay, what can we craft that's really going to put all of those things together in a new experience? And then, oh, by the way, can we layer in some cool technology that maybe we haven't used or we've used in a different way? So kind of going back to the conversation about intervention and the free-ranging vehicles and then layering on bits and pieces. I mean, the opportunities to be inspired from things we've done already to create things we haven't yet seen, with stories that haven't been told physically. There's so many worlds of opportunity there. It's really hard to pinpoint, so you have to kind of look at all of those factors and then what our guests are telling us they need to craft what will be next.
Nice. Yeah. Craig, what is your hope for the future of Tokyo DisneySea, and where do you see it headed in the next 20 years?
Well, we're not done with it yet. There is still, after this eighth port of call, there is still more land, so there's always more, and there's more than enough imagination. We are actually in fantastically productive conversations with Oriental Land Company's leadership about master planning, sort of the future of both parks over the longer horizon. We didn't really mention with Fantasy Springs the awesome hotel that is a bookend to the Miracosta, which was at the time a pretty big bet to build a truly an in-berm, a completely immersive in-berm hotel. And so we're sort of doubling down on that idea at the back as a bookend at the back of the park with Fantasy Springs. So there's probably more to do in that in that vein in the future. So I'm probably most excited about seeing, as these two very clearly said, seeing Fantasy Springs and seeing what it does to the richness of the park. But then, like this park's been able to do so far, just say, okay, that's good. Now we can grow on that, because this park definitely can and will get better over time.
How has the working with the Japanese inspired all of you, as far as your partnership goes and the creativity and the back and forth, and how has it personally made you a better Imagineer in any ways? Have they taught you things
I'll
that you
start.
don't?
They've taught me immensely. There's an earnestness about about everyone who we work with there, whether it be Oriental Land Company or a contractor or a vendor, or the guest ultimately, it rubs off on you, and it just makes you drive yourself that much harder to be that earnest.
Yeah, it's the way to be. Well, I think that concludes our Magical Milestones Tokyo DisneySea 20th Anniversary Roundtable, and I want to thank you all for joining today and for all your amazing work on both parks and onwards. We look forward to 2023.
So we're here in front of the icon for Lost River Delta and the Indiana Jones attraction here at TDS. As you can see, we have an opportunity to do a lot more with the Indiana Jones story on stage than we were able to do in Disneyland. I was able to work on the first one in Disneyland as well, and then bring my experience here to TDS to build this attraction. I was a project architect as well as a field art director for Lost River Delta, and we were able to take some time and go down to the Yucatan. We studied the Mayan architecture, and it was really valuable. So we came back and brought all those stories, a very rich story of culture, into the attraction. The attraction itself, as you can tell, we actually have queue that goes inside of the pyramid. And what's amazing was the very top of the pyramid was built in a separate place on the ground. And we brought in one day a gigantic crane, and we lifted that up and placed it on top of the pyramid. So we weren't quite faithful to the way that the Mayans would have built things, but we got it done in a day. So that was a pretty amazing experience to watch that go up.
It's so great to be back here. It's the 20th anniversary of TDS, and here we are, the opportunity to actually be back here working on an expansion to Tokyo DisneySea 20 years after the fact, and it's really great.
Yeah, no, this whole park has just been it's been great to watch it grow up, and obviously the first big thrill attraction that we installed after opening. From the field office right behind here, every day I hear people screaming, so I think we did a pretty good job putting an element of thrill into the park.
It was great, and it was such a unique opportunity because we were having to do this and kind of wedge it in right next to Indiana Jones.
Right.
And it kind of came with a built-in theme, right, of excavation, restoration, and all of that.
Yeah, and it was supposed to be a lift of the Temple of Peril from your Disneyland, and it ended up being almost a completely new attraction because all the structural requirements for seismic and so forth required us to make the actual structure of the ride much bigger.
Yeah, and what was great, it actually gave us an opportunity to come up with a brand new storyline that fit in with Lost River Delta and take advantage of this looping coaster and actually bring some kinetics to the backside of the park and help it become more of a drawback here.
Yeah, no, and I think that, again, the screaming is one of the things. As soon as you turn the corner into Mermaid Lagoon, you hear the screaming, and I think it is a real ear catcher, if you will.
You know, one of the fun things about the story is that because of the site constraints, we couldn't focus both of the idols, right? This is a story about competing idols of fire and water, and we couldn't actually focus on both of them up front, but we focused on the story of fire and water with this grand staircase behind us, you know, with a great special effect of cascading water and flames rushing through it. I think it really tells a story, but it also gave our guests an opportunity. The further into the queue they went, the more the story revealed itself. The second idol came up, the loop was there, and it heightened the excitement as the guests went through.
Yeah, and our guests really pay attention to that here, and so I think all that work we did to kind of make that backstory work was a really valuable thing.
Absolutely.
So now we're here in front of the main marquee for the Toy Story attraction, Toy Story Mania, we call it here in Tokyo DisneySea. We opened it in 2012, about 10 years after the opening of TDS. We brought, hopefully, a lot of what was inspired for the original attraction in Disneyland. We obviously have a little bit more front of the house architecture that was allowed to be playful. It's inspired by Coney Island's Luna Park, which was around the time when light bulbs were invented. And so around the facade, there's thousands and thousands of exposed LED bulbs, which would have been a kind of a modern miracle at the time. The attraction actually was delayed a little bit during construction because we were hit by the big tsunami and earthquake that happened in Fukushima. And when it did open, of course, it was a huge success, and TDS bounced back very quickly after the earthquake. We were happy to be able to be here during that time and help OLC get through the construction, and we ended up opening on time. So very, very proud moment of my life to be here during that time and support the team and get this project open.
Today, I'm actually standing right in front of Soaring Fantastic Flight, the newest attraction at Tokyo DisneySea. It opened July 23rd, 2019, and what you see behind you is the aqueduct plus the Soaring Fantastic Flight. The aqueduct has always been there. So when we came up with the idea of how we're gonna dress up the soaring attraction, because the show box is very, very, very big, and what kind of theming and how can we blend it with Mediterranean Harbor. So the idea came to us to create the Museum of Flight and at the same time try to theme the big, huge ride box with the background of a Tuscan village that fits within the skyline of Mediterranean Harbor.
I think what made Soaring so special not only was its unique storytelling, but on a personal level, for me, what really connected me to this project was that the protagonist was a female that was adventurous and had traveled throughout the world, collected sketches, and really took on the museum from her family. I think what made it so special to many Imagineers is that we all identify with collecting beautiful things and artistic items and putting them on display, even in our own offices. I personally, had studied abroad in Italy, and this was just so special. And I think how special it was just reflects in all the details and every single line that every Imagineer put into this.
Here at Mediterranean Harbor, we've done a variety of shows, everything from huge spectaculars to more whimsical, sometimes even maybe a little darker yet playful, depending on our season. Much like our WDI partners and how they evolve attractions and some of the lands in the parks, our entertainment continually has to evolve as well, taking advantage of technology and new platforms to showcase our IP. While our IP stays classic in its story, our obligation is to make it more relevant for new audiences. And one of the ways we do that is to really capitalize on technology and show new ways and bring new fans into our family. We look forward to welcoming you. We look forward to welcoming our guests. And thanks for being part of our celebration.
I remember 20 years ago walking around this park, rehearsing some of our entertainment and wearing a hard hat and just amazed at this surreal reality that I was walking through. I felt like I had actually got on a plane and gone somewhere new that I had never been to. And one day after rehearsal at Mediterranean Harbor, we were walking back through the volcano and there was a cast member kind of motioning to us. And 20 years ago, my Japanese was not as good as it is now, but all I could see was them motioning, come on over. And so they were testing Journey to the Center of the Earth, and I had no idea what this attraction was all about because I was entertainment. I knew what more shows were, but we worked our way through the queue and went in the televator and went down and down and down and then started this amazing attraction. And I think it's probably one of the most exciting memories in my entire 35 years with Disney of going on an attraction that I had no idea what I was going in for and getting into, and the amount of storytelling that happened in that attraction is a memory that still I remember to this day. And even today, writing this attraction, I am amazed at the detail and the storytelling. I remember opening day, and like so many times on our anniversaries, there was rain, but the rain disappeared and everything was able to come to life on opening day. And looking at the guests' faces, it reminded me of those times when I was in rehearsals walking through the park with just my jaw on the ground, and I could see it in every single guest's face, the excitement of being transported to a brand new place.
Today, here we are at the caldera, which, a lot of time people ask you, well, which is the most favorite project of yours? What was the most intriguing? And I mean, it's really hard not to think of the largest man-made sculpture in the world and not have that one of the most special projects that you've been involved with. And this is personally, to me, is definitely that. And not just the size of it, but the beautiful design, the realistic interpretation of the finishes. We really wanted to create something that that it's a one of a kind in the world. We really wanted to do something that doesn't remind the Japanese people either of Mount Fuji or other, volcanoes in Japan. We wanted to bring a volcano with a story, which is Captain Nemo. And I think that we had a lot of fun doing it, and we created a lot of beautiful finishes and a lot of stories. But what does it take to do something like that? It takes a lot of talent. It takes a wonderful group of people. We just finished the Tree of Life in Florida, Animal Kingdom, Walt Disney World, and then we just came here to Tokyo immediately after that.
I came here in Japan the first time in 1998, and I worked on the Prometheus Mountain, the caldera, for 3 years. From building the armature, the shape of this mountain, to the final texture of this mountain. What was the most amazing thing was for me to work in this scale, because it's always a dream when you build a mountain and when you do rock work, you say, oh, I want to do something big, I want to do something large. And 3 years on this project, every single day working on this mountain, I thought myself every morning, I say, wow, this is big enough for me.
This project brought so many talents from all around the world. It was unbelievable. So I was lucky to be part of the project. And the fortress was one of my assignments. So I was very pleased to be part of the project, and particularly to be taking care of the karate facade here at the fortress, just in front of the Mount Prometheus.
To be standing here 20 years after the opening, it's quite a remarkable experience. Looking back, to see a project of this caliber, complexity, and level of finishing was a theme painter's dream, actually. From the caldera, the realism, to the Maricosta, to the whimsical fantasy finishes that are in Mermaid Lagoon. It had a canvas of all types of finishes that challenged each and every one of us.
We have worked on Mount Prometheus repaint project, and also we worked on the Hotel Maricosta repaint work. Park has been open really greatly, beautiful, but that 10 years, 20 years, the surface of the paint degraded, artificial foliage degraded. We really have to keep it in good shape. It's challenging, but it's really nice to see that the park being revived with our work and keeping it in good shape and giving them great show to the guests. That's our privilege. Happy 20th anniversary!
Hey Peter, good morning. It's great to be out here with you on the site of Fantasy Springs. We're celebrating the 20th anniversary of Tokyo DisneySea, and we get to be here to actually kick off the next 20 years as we look into building and constructing these great attractions for TDS and all the guests that are going to come.
It's fantastic to be here in Tokyo with the team. It's terrific to be a part of this attraction here. Looking forward to the next 20 years. It's very exciting. Project has its challenges, for sure, but we really think that with the partnership here, we really have a bright future.
That's so great. And I kind of looking back, I want to really pay tribute to our predecessors that came before, because the idea of Disney and OLC kind of really taking the bold steps to come up with a second gate here that was completely unique. I give them a lot of credit, and I think we just want to live up to that legacy.
And I think the team is, actually. There's a lot of things that the team is able to do. It's pretty impressive, especially now with all of the technology, being able to communicate and collaborate the way we do. I also think that the team continues to push the bar to much more exciting kind of Disney storytelling, and I think that this, especially Fantasy Springs, is going to be another step in that direction. It's a fantastic project.
This project is really exciting because it's the first time we're adding an entire new port to Tokyo DisneySea. We're so excited, and we really wanted to get back to the core of Disney storytelling and let our guests explore the worlds of our animated features. Our guests are going to get the opportunity to go on an adventure with Peter Pan. They'll get to experience the heart and emotion that we feel with Anna and Elsa in Arendelle. And they'll also get to go journey to the Lantern Festival with Rapunzel. Our guests are going to experience the Disney magic that we love in our animated films. This project is so incredible to me because as I came into Imagineering as a young Imagineer, Tokyo DisneySea had just barely opened. So all the Imagineers were talking about this incredible new theme park in Tokyo. And I first got this experience to see it around 2 years after that. And it really became this design aspiration. I wanted to be like all those other Imagineers and get to work on such an incredible project.
Honestly, it is unreal. After almost 5 years of working on this project, it's incredible to see it come to life here in person 20 years later. And we can only hope to really follow the footsteps of the great legends that worked on TDS.
The technology is completely different, and we are much advanced with the chip and tap method for the rock work, which we didn't have anything at all like that 20 years ago.
Talking a little bit about technology and chip and tab on rockwork, this project really is the largest rockwork expansion since TDS, Caldera, and Mount Prometheus. So I just think the scale of this is really fantastic, and the amount of talent it has recruited here in Tokyo. Would you agree, Jun-san?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. This is such a great scale of the project, but which you don't see anywhere else in Japan.
This has been a great opportunity. This is a very fantastic opportunity for all of us. The hotel is a luxury and deluxe combined, which is unique in the industry as well as for Disney.
そうですね。やはり日本のこの難しい法規とか与えられる条件、そういうものの困難を乗り越えて、ディズニーのクリエイティビティを保っていくっていうところにとても感銘を受けてます。とてもエキサイティングですね。で、今まではアトラクションばっかりやってましたけども、今回ホテルっていう本当にアーキテクトが活躍できるところなので、本当に楽しくやっております。
One of the unique parts of this hotel is the fact that it's a deluxe and a luxury combined. The luxury has 417 rooms and we have 55 luxury rooms. We also have a luxury restaurant and an all-day dining. And I think there's just the fact that it's in Burm and in the park and that there's spectacular views from the hotel. And then the grand lobby is kind of the iconic piece of the hotel that you can see right behind us.
There's actually a whole generation of interpreters who started their careers at Tokyo DisneySea. And every once in a while, I will meet a former TDS interpreter, and it's like the time disappears. You can immediately connect. And I think that TDS has given me and countless other people all of these connections. It doesn't matter if we were working directly on this project, because this is something that required so many people to work on it. It was a true collective team effort, not a small team, but honestly, hundreds of people, maybe thousands of people, from conception through opening, and then even after opening, the whole evolution of just never-ending connections being formed. And I'm sometimes kind of humbled by the fact that I'm a small part of that connection.
Just like Yukako, I really did not think that I would still be here. When the office closed, I thought, oh, that was such an extraordinary experience that I'm never ever going to ever have in my life. But here I am back on site. I'm really working on the site, and we're onboarding a lot of new interpreters. And when I look at them, I remember how I was on my very first day. I really look at the new interpreters being onboarded right now, and I really think that they're going to be the next generation interpreters who are going to be supporting Disney and OLC as the park continues to grow.
I'd like to thank the Imagineers around the world and the D23 Gold members for joining us today, and happy 20th anniversary to Tokyo DisneySea.